Mortgage rates rose again last week, marking the fifth week of increases in a row. Mortgage rates reached a national average of 6.4%. They're being fueled by turmoil in the bond market linked to the war in Iran. Before the strikes began, the rate was just below 6%. First time it had been there in quite a while. Despite higher interest rates and global uncertainty, Denver's housing market is showing some signs of life this spring. Area realtors say buyers are stepping back in and homes are moving faster thanks to what's being called a seasonal spring surge. The expert on seasonal spring surge is here. 9 News real estate expert Lane Lyon back with us this morning to break this all down. Lane's a realtor and managing broker at Caldwell Banker.
Good morning, Steve. Thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.
You know, when I think of the impression of the housing market right now and you hear of the interest rates, I would think it's not great, but you're saying that maybe that's a bit of an illusion.
You're like all of my friends and some of my clients who feel like there must be a slowdown in the market because we're seeing some of these headlines. And the truth of the matter is some of the numbers are showing a little bit of a different story. In fact, the Denver Metro Association of Realtors came out with their new numbers for March, and it shows that Denver is hanging in there pretty well. In fact, I brought some of those numbers to show you. The number of pending sales, those are the houses that went under contract in March, up almost 31%, Steve. That's from the month before. So there's that spring surge you were talking about. Also, the number of days that it takes to sell your home on average went down to 16 days. We'll take that. That's not too bad. Average sales price of home selling in March, over $700,000. That's up 4%. So those numbers look really good. I need to keep it in context, though, because we're still a little behind where we were last year. At this point, January and February in 2026, we're slower, but you can see the momentum is building, and where we go from here, we're curious, but it's a lot of cautious optimism right now.
My perception of spring is so off because it already feels like we've been there with the weather.
Spring started in January,
I think it might have been December, frankly. But so what should people watch as they're going into the spring season?
Well, I mentioned the cautious optimism, right? Really, this is a game of strategy. You need to make sure whether you're a buyer or seller that you're keeping some of these in mind, because as you mentioned, interest rates are still over 6%. So that's going to affect how much buying power you have. Also, I should mention the condo and townhome market in Denver is slower, and that is normal. That we tend to see that this time of year, but really right now, if you're pricing a condo or townhome, you need to be strategic. And those seller concessions are increasing. That's the amount of closing costs that buyers are asking sellers to pay for to help bring those interest rates down. So those factors are still in there. We haven't seen that change quite yet. I think as the demand starts to go up, and we're optimistic that will happen, we'll see some of this change.
You and I were talking very briefly, and I'm going to ask you about this because I find it interesting. I've seen some homes sitting on the market for quite a while, but you say that might just be a matter of what has gone on inside that home.
Oh, absolutely. If you are selling a home in Denver right now, we realtors are kind of saying the same thing, which is you have to stand out in the crowd. We do have an increase of inventory, and so that might be features that you've got in your home that are unique, or it might just be that you are priced attractively. And it is difficult for sellers to price a little bit lower than they want, but it just might be the one that a buyer says, let's go for it because I like the price.
Love that. Okay. What should buyers and sellers be thinking about right now?
Well, certainly you have to really know your numbers. I think if you're a buyer out there, understand that taxes and insurance are going up. Interest rates are changing almost weekly right now, and that could affect what you can qualify for. For sellers, understand that pricing game, because even though, as I mentioned, you're pricing a little bit lower than you feel comfortable, you may end up with more than one buyer pushing you up. The other side is the waiting game, and we really are seeing what's kind of a split market in Denver, I think, in some neighborhoods where houses are going on the first weekend, and then there are other houses that are sitting and sitting and sitting, and a lot of it is because of the beginning game. How you start the process is really going to determine how you end the process.
That's so interesting. So you could start too high.
Absolutely.
And scare everyone away.
We know all sellers are created equal or all worried about leaving money on the table. But in Denver, it's difficult to do because we'll just bid up the price. So have confidence, trust your realtor, and have some strategy too.
Fantastic advice. Lane Lyon, thank you so much for coming in this morning.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.